Um, all right, folks, we are here. And unfortunately, you're stuck with Jamie and I, who really don't know how to run this thing. Usually, Greg is in charge of this, but if most of you know, he was actually at the game today. So we were not able to. It was funny because Jamie thought that I knew how to run it, and I thought Jamie knew how to run it. And unfortunately, none of us knew how to run it. So that's probably not a good thing. But anyway, it is what it is. So sorry for the kind of how do you want to put it? Terrible start, I guess.
Yeah.
But hey, we're
Oh,
here.
like this is a similar start to this game. So
Yeah. Exactly. And we're executing about as well as the Irish did at the beginning of the game. So, um, Yama, let's just kick this off. There's a lot of positives about this game, and there are a lot, and we're going to get to them. And some guys that took some heat, I think, really rebounded and played really well today. We're going to get to all that. But I just feel like I have to say this because I think it's true. And that is, I know everybody's going to say, well, Mike, why are you complaining after a 45-7 win? There's not much to complain about. And I get that. I understand that if you look at one game in a situation, but you cannot continue to start this way, Yama. You just can't. And yes, it didn't matter today when you're playing a team like Wake Forest. It doesn't matter because they don't have the ability to score and do some things that can put you in a bad situation. But it does matter against a team like Duke. It does matter against a team like Louisville. And it certainly matters against a team like Clemson. And those were bad starts in a lot of those games. They just did not play well at the beginning of the game. Momentum is everything in college football. And because of this, when you have these situations, this is where you run into the problems, is that it doesn't matter in this particular game. And nobody should be upset because of the way the game came out. But when it does matter is when you're playing a really good team. And if you start the game slow and you just can't get going, as we've seen, we saw it the Duke game, we saw it at Louisville, we saw it at Clemson, we saw it at Stanford last year, we saw it at Marshall last year. That's 5 games, and there are other games this year where I wouldn't say they necessarily started well. Now, that doesn't mean not every team's going to start well. Of course, that's not the case, but you've had off weeks to fix this, and we had one this week to fix this, and I still thought they came out and were executing very poorly. Obviously the defense did well on the first drive. There's no question, but then they had a penalty that extended the drive, and then they certainly shut them down. But offense, we saw what happened there. Special teams, you shank a punt, there's just all kinds of things. You miss a field goal right away. There's just a lot of things, and you can't play this way against good teams because you're gonna lose the game as we've seen. Now, give the coaches credit. They went in at halftime, Yama. But they fixed some things. They did a good job on a lot of things. I think the defensive game plan was solid. What they were trying to do. I don't like seeing the run. The run yards, as Jamie knows. But I understand why they're giving up some of this run, because what they're trying to do defensively, and it worked. Obviously when you look at the score, but that's the one kind of negative that I have out of the game is if you're going to ever be a great team, you can't continue to start games like this, Yama. And I've been hoping that this would be fixed by now. And unfortunately, again, you had a whole 2 weeks to fix this kind of thing and get the mentality right, and it just didn't happen. And so that's the only real kind of big disappointment for me in this game. Your thoughts, Jamie?
Yeah, I would say that, and then also the not having to waste the timeout at the end of the
certainly
half. Like
that was the interesting thing. That was terrible. There was no doubt about it. And it was interesting because I was talking to my wife and texting with another guy, and I saw your comments where you said you felt like they didn't get the play in time. But it looked like there was 10 seconds left before Hartman. I thought it was probably a personnel situation where he didn't have the right personnel because he kept looking at his wrist afterwards going, what, and shaking his head like, what's going on here? So I think it was more a personnel thing, but maybe I'm wrong. I'm sure he'll be asked about it in the press conference. And it's just, those are some bad things that happened. And you hate seeing that. But anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think just that kind of thing, because, and that's like the start of the game too, right? Where the kind of operation on offense, that's the kind of thing that is still concerning. Yeah, like you said,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter in this game, but it matters, and that's one of the reasons too why people get upset or whatever, because it reminds them of why they lost these other games, right? And I do think though that this was Jared Parker's probably his best game in
Oh, no, no
months.
question.
His
I
best
think
game
that
in
he did
months.
a great job, and it's amazing what play action can do for your offense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's amazing what it can do. I understand his kind of comments that he made afterwards, man versus zone and play action and those types of things. But come on, man. I mean, you have to do it some, especially if you're having success running the football like they were, in the Clemson game early and in other situations. But we can argue with or discuss this, but there's no question. I thought Jared Parker this was by far, I would have to say, probably his best game as far as calling plays. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I would say so,
The
and
design of them.
obviously,
Yeah.
yeah, and I would say it was Hartman's best game since
Yes.
early in the season too, right?
Yeah.
And
No question. Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, it's funny when those things work together, right? That's kind of how it's supposed to be, right? I thought that Parker set up Hartman for success, and then Hartman had success because of that, right? But then even you saw like Hartman make throws with pressure in his face where he hadn't been doing that for
Yes.
like a long time, where he did earlier in the season. And yeah, I mean, I will say, like, yeah, I see some comments in there. Yeah, this, if anything, it only makes you more frustrated
Sure.
from previous games. But
Shouldn't take game 11 into the season to figure
yeah,
out that play action is something you should do. Running
yeah,
bootlegs is something you should do.
yeah,
And finding it shouldn't take you 11 games to figure that out. And anyway, go ahead, Jamie. I'm sorry.
yeah. But I know, yeah, and I think that's just the thing, right? Is that um obviously Parker's going to be judged off of not this game, or not how he finishes against Stanford, who has a bad defense, right? Or even the bowl game, right? Like that. I mean, not that it matters somewhat, but it doesn't matter when you have to look at the whole season in totality, and they're games that obviously, like, he didn't do a good job, and the offense didn't execute well, and so all of those things matter. But I mean, I will say that um, they set the players up for success, and then you saw that success. Like, I mean, I think Eli Raridan, I mean, he just showed, like, this is what the guy can look like if you throw him the football,
Oh,
right? Like,
absolutely.
he is a very, very talented player, and I know people were excited about Holden Stays earlier, and they still should be excited about Holden Stays and what he can do, going forward. But um, I think athletically, Raridan is a better athlete than Stays. Like,
No
he's
doubt. Yeah.
a guy who has more upside in that respect. And you saw obviously that touchdown was a perfect example of that too. And it was great to see that. Obviously, you look at almost all of the guys today who, I mean, Flores obviously had a 100-yard game. Great house, the catch and run, 52 yards. Love to see that.
I love to see the
Just,
burst. You know
yeah,
what I mean? He was
you can tell
pulling
he's
away,
healthy.
and
Yeah.
yes, exactly. And another positive that I'm sure you're going to get to. I really thought Billy Strouth played really well in this game, and I thought Craig
Ashton
also
Craig.
played
Yeah.
both those guys played really, really well. And when you rewatch, I was kind of focused on those guys quite a bit. Billy was hammering dudes in there in the run game. He and Blake were working very, very, very well together, hammering dudes in there, and I was impressed. And the things that we saw in pass protection before, He was holding his own. He was,
Yeah.
he was not getting bull rushed. Now, granted, these aren't 330-pound, guys
Yeah.
coming at him, but still, they're also very quick guys too. Those guys up front that they have, and so I thought that Billy played really, really well, and so did Craig. And so the question is, what do you do if Corral can come back next week? Because Ashton Craig's played fantastic, and I would have a really hard time setting a guy down who's played that well. And as much as I think Zeke, deserves some playing time and things like that, it's just tough to sit a guy like that when he's played so well. That's going to be a tough situation if Zeke can come back next week. What do you think there?
Yeah, I think they got to play Craig. If I mean, I'll rewatch it obviously and kind of see, because sometimes you see stuff and you're like, oh, maybe he didn't play as well as you initially thought. But I mean, you just see a lot of things where Corral has had like a tough time in most games, really, in most games. So, and I don't think it's all about like looking to the future too, but it's about like the players know when a guy's playing better than somebody else. And if
Yeah,
someone's actually playing better than someone else, and it sucks because you don't want someone like Zeke Corral to end his Notre Dame career on a note where, I mean, he's essentially getting benched for someone else. But if someone's better, someone's better. That's just the case. And I think too, if like Sam Hartman, obviously he had a great game today, but if he stunk up the joint today, then rightfully so, people should have been like, put Angeli in, right? But
yeah.
now obviously you can't do that because of where they're at. But I mean, speaking of though, Angeli, the guy just looks amazing every single time he's out there.
And
Like,
the funny thing is, people will say, "Okay, well, it's garbage time." It doesn't matter. That was a perfect ball, and that's not
yeah,
an easy throw either. You know what I mean?
yeah,
That's not an easy throw, and especially to a guy who's essentially 5'10". You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's not an easy throw. When you got a small guy like that, you got to put it right on the money. Otherwise, that's going to be an incomplete pass. And you go back to the play that he made to tight end. 87.
oh, Flanagan.
Flanagan, yeah. I mean, that was a
Yeah,
tremendous throw. And every time we've seen Steve Angeli play in a game and really in spring game, he's looked very, very good. And so
yeah,
I think that that's where people are like, why are we bothering with a portal quarterback? Uh, I get why they're bothering with it, but I do hope Angeli gets a shot because you can tell, the other thing that you can tell about players, Jamie, is when they do something well, and how people react to it on the sideline after the
yeah,
play. And you watch that, I mean, every single person was coming up to Angeli and just like, giving him, high fives and just loving every second of it and stuff. And so it's just, I really hope he does get a shot and they just don't give it to whoever the portal guy is coming in. I really hope he gets a shot and I hope Mitchie gets a shot at it too.
yeah,
But it's, I tell you what, the way Angeli's played, it may be hard for a lot of guys to beat him out, and he's going to have the off. Well, we don't know. We don't know what's going to be the offense moving forward at this point, so who knows? It will be interesting to see what happens. Defensively, what did you see, Yama?
Well, I mean, obviously, Wake Forest isn't a good team offensively, and that was going to be the case. I knew that the quarterback was going to be outmatched. Obviously, he threw for like less than 5 yards per attempt. I mean, they did nothing in the air. They're really their longest pass of the day was um the reverse pass by the receiver.
Yeah,
That was the longest throw of the day. And then the longest actual play of the day was that like double pass that the guy kind of saw that it was covered and then he ran for it. And it was a good play, good heads up play by him. But that was it. That was kind of, and that was obviously their scoring drive, right? And they had some runs here and there, but most of the stuff, I mean, it wasn't anything big. They never gave up like a 20-yard run or a 30-yard run. And that's the main thing. The safeties tackled well. Um, they didn't have anything, even though you say like a guy like Jamal Banks. I mean, he had a couple nice plays in the game, but I mean, the guy had 35 yards receiving on 13 targets, right? Like he didn't really have anything, right? Like his best play was the PI that he got on the very first series, right? So, and I actually think he's a pretty good player. Like that's a guy that I think Notre Dame should go after. And
Yeah.
speaking of Donovan Green, who's out for the year, that's another guy that if he's going to be back in school, that's a
Go
receiver
after
that
him.
Nottingham
Yes. Yeah.
should target.
Good player. Very good
Yeah,
player. Yeah.
very
Yeah.
good player, right? Like he's a guy who could walk in and probably be a wide receiver 1 if he's healthy, right?
Yeah.
So um, I, I think that they did a great job in terms of the pressure stuff. Obviously, JJB is just, I mean, he's playing great. This guy deserves a Senior Bowl invite. He's played really, really at a high level
Yeah.
for a very long period of time. Really kind of just turned it up. That Ohio State game just kind of like unlocked it for him. And he was
Yeah.
not playing bad before that, but he's really played at a high level since then. So I mean, I just think like obviously there wasn't a lot for Notre Dame to do in terms of because of what they were doing on offense, and really they probably would have had more chances to like pick the ball off, but the guy like scrambled, and Kearns like threw the ball away and scrambled a couple times, and he had a couple nice scrambles, but that was really it. Like, I mean, when you have 7 points, that's kind of what it is. Like they really had the 2 nice drives, right, in the second half, and that was kind of it, right? And I even think just like the small things, like Mike, I mean, you were saying they were running it on him on that one drive, and then they tightened up and they got the third and short stop. They got the 4th and 1 stop, and that was like with backups in the game too. So that was big, right? Like just always to see that kind of thing is always a good sign. And like even just at the end of the game where you're like just Christian Gray just coming up,
Huge hit.
Christian Gray is going to be so good.
He's going to
be so good.
Well, the guy's like maybe 180 pounds, and he just stoned that dude. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't remember a corner that just flat. I mean, that guy was not going anywhere. He literally just stoned the dude. And so that was very, very impressive. And he certainly played well in pass coverage throughout the year. So very, very excited about that. We got to see some Tyson Ford in there. We got to see some Brennan Vernon in there at the end of the game. We got to see some Jalen Sneed at the end of the game. So you like seeing those guys get some time and reps and everything at the end for the defense. And let's hope they'll get some more opportunities against Stanford if they take care of business out there, and we'll see what happens. But I mean, overall, I think offensively, I thought it was, one of their better games. I thought pass protection was pretty solid most of the game. I thought they did. I mean, there were times where Hartman had forever to throw the football. And so I thought the pass protection was really, really good most of the game. And then, I don't know about you, but I was like, why? I know you want to get 100 yards for Estime, but come on, man, get him out of the game. Nobody wants to see the guy hurt.
I was like, maybe they have the over on his rushing yards.
Yeah, exactly. Because But and you'd like to see some, Jeremiah Love and JD Price get some opportunities and that type of thing. But by the way, I know this is not game related, but did you see the Aeneas Williams film again? His 7 touchdown performance.
Yeah.
Man, that guy's going to be good. Those 2 backs, I'm just so excited about those 2 backs. I mean, they're just really, really talented. I don't know if there's any questions from people. I don't know if we can actually put them up on the screen, but if people have questions for Jamie and I, feel free to shoot them over here. When you look at the situation, Jamie, and it's a disappointing kind of situation for Notre Dame, because I think that there were some opportunities there for sure. And, this season, and it just never really happened like you'd want it to. But I do think that there's been some progress with this team. I think some guys, especially some of the younger players, have really started to develop and will help you down the line. When you those freshman wide receivers, those guys are going to be pretty good next year. Getting Eli Raritan in the game and getting him together. We'll see what, hopefully Mitch Evans comes back and he's the same type of player that you had before. But boy, if you could throw those 2 together out there on the field as pass receiving tight ends, that's a pretty good situation. We've already talked about Stays, Flanagan, certainly a guy who's earning playing time. And I think he's going to be a better pass receiver than I think people realize. Kind of reminds me of Fasano. I think he's going to be that type of player. I don't know if he's going to be that great of a receiver because I don't know if he's ever going to get that many opportunities because he's going to have some really talented guys in front of him. But I do think that he has that kind of ability and can be that, that type of player. So I love what I see with the offensive line. I love those young guys. I think, with Craig and Shrouth, I think Rocco got better as the season went on, still has some issues, but hopefully he'll get back together and get a little bit better as the time goes on. And then, obviously quarterback, I mean, I think a lot of people were worried about what they'd have at quarterback next year. And we don't know what's going to see in Angeli, but I feel pretty good about that situation right now. I don't remember, Jamie, too many quarterbacks that were coming up next where I felt this good about the guy coming in. And I think that says a lot. I think that's something to get excited about. Your thoughts there?
Yeah, and I also think he's gonna Angeli or whoever, Minchie or a Portal guy, all those guys get to benefit from the fact that these young guys kind of took their lumps this year, and they're going to be back next year. So I think that is going to be huge. And obviously, hopefully Mitchell Evans is healthy at the beginning of the year or at some point in the year because he's going to be a weapon, right? But I think it just shows too, like this game, like Wake Forest, there's no way they prepared for, they're prepared for anything from Eli Reardon in terms of him in the passing game. Then all of a sudden they're like, man, who's this guy, right? Like who's coming out and doing this, right? So there's going to be weapons. And then obviously you got Love and Price, who are, I think, only going to be that much better next year. There's a lot of weapons there that I think it's a pretty young offense for the most part, right? Like obviously you're going to lose Hartman, but even just getting back like Faison is going to be a player. Like he is going to be a player.
Yeah.
They have some good options and
hopefully Merriweather. Hopefully this kicks off.
That's the thing about Tobias Merriweather is like he just will make a play. Like he just obviously blew by that corner, right? And you make that play, and it's just why no one can kind of quit him as a player because he's got that talent. And sometimes it just does take guys longer. And I really hope this guy figures it out at Notre Dame because they just don't have anybody else like him, right? They don't have anybody else quite like him. So I really, really hope that he's able to figure it out. But I think they're set up well. And that's why I think the one thing with Steve Angeli, and he make that obviously the nice throw. And like you mentioned the two nice throws that he's made, like that kind of stood out, like the tougher throws, right? The slot fade and then the Flanagan. But it's just the fact that every kind of every RPO to the field is like perfectly on the receiver.
Yeah.
Where like, so that even though Flores obviously fumbled on that play, he set him up to make a play after the catch.
Sure.
Because he put the ball on him. Like that's the thing that stands
it's
about
accurate.
About Angeli. It's
and that's what he
accuracy.
Yeah. And he gets a ball out. And I think if you even go back and watch the last performance he had, it wasn't obviously the Flanagan throw was impressive, but all the other throws were impressive too. And that's what that should get you excited. Defensively, obviously we'll have to see who comes back. I think that's going to be the big thing. How many of those linebackers come back, if any? How many of the D linemen come back, if any? Does X Watts come back? I don't know.
He didn't walk for senior day.
Yeah,
today. So that would make me think that he's leaning.
Is he a senior though? Because I'm not sure
I think he's in his fourth year, right?
Okay. Is he fourth year? Maybe he is.
Yeah, I believe he is.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, I hope that he comes back because he could be a heck of a player, and they're going to need some guys for sure. I doubt Cam Hart will be back. I'll be surprised if he comes back. He's been around. I don't think Clarence Lewis will come back. I'll be surprised if he does. And then like I said, we'll see what happens defensively. They're certainly going to have some holes that they're going to have to fill. but I like a lot of the young guys that are behind him. I think that I feel pretty good about some of that young talent, and I think that they can get pretty good, hopefully quickly. I think some of them may even be more athletic than what they currently have. They'll probably make more mistakes, but you got to hope that that athleticism will allow them to maybe make up for some of the mistakes they make by making more negative plays. So I don't know. We'll see what happens, and I think there's a lot to get excited about. I really do. So, um, I did see somebody asked a question about, I was definitely certainly excited about Dan Christ when it was his opportunity. That didn't work out very well, unfortunately. But I was excited about him. He had all the physical tools to be really, really good. Just couldn't put it together. But yeah, I think that was certainly a good one to point out that he was certainly somebody to get excited about as well. Oh wow! I just saw Jordan Travis just got carted off the field. Oh
Oh,
boy. Yeah, it said his leg just got Joe Theismann. Oh, I hope
oh
not.
no.
I hope not. I hope it's not that bad.
Oh, I'm looking right now.
Oh,
There's like
oh,
people.
oh gosh.
Oh no.
Just that's terrible if true because he seems like such a nice guy,
Oh,
playing
that's a
so
great
well.
story to
Yeah,
like,
it really
he was
is.
counted out kind of early in his
Totally.
career.
I mean, it was funny. I remember when Notre Dame played them his first year, and I remember you and I talking about that, saying, "Well, he can't throw for crap, but he can certainly run." And boy, he's become quite a thrower. I mean, that guy he can really throw the football. So I hate seeing that for Jordan Travis. I really do. Speaking of which, USC. Wow. I mean, they got some problems there, dude. What do you? I
Oof.
mean, I don't even know what you do. Oh boy, they're saying he's going in the ambulance now. Oh boy, gosh,
That- That's
I,
horrible.
I just don't even. I hope they don't show it. I hate that kind of stuff. I can't watch, man. It drives me crazy to see those kind of injuries. So I really hope that they don't see that. Um. So I don't know. You're going to Stanford this week coming up, Jamie. Pretty important game. It really is. And I think because Notre Dame hasn't necessarily played well there a number of times, and again, kind of it was a slow start to you can't argue that. It just definitely was a slow start. If you're Marcus Freeman, what do you do here? How do you fix this at this point?
Um, I mean, I think this is the kind of game too where it actually doesn't. It's another one of these ones that I don't really think the start is going to matter just because they're going to overmatch Stanford. Um, I I think you just have to kind of look at it like almost like what are you doing with your script um and how that's approached because it's one of these things. It's not like you can give like a fiery speech to someone and then it's like, oh well, now these guys are ready, right? Like I don't think it's gonna like works like that. It doesn't for most players, right? Like it's not one of those things. These guys are either ready or they're not. And I mean, I think there's something to this game with it being kind of senior day and it kind of a little bit of a lull there because there is a lot of the distractions with it um, that go along with it, with all like the families in town and all of these other things, and everything everything's just a little bit tighter, right? Like you're just wanting to do well on your last day, and then it kind of like needed something good to happen, and then all of a sudden it started kind of flowing. So I think partially that was a little bit with this thing. Um, I just think with Stanford, I think you do have to kind of coach it into the guys because the crowd is going to be brutal. First of all, it's going to be a Pac-12 network. No one's going to be watching. Like
Yeah.
relatively speaking, right? Like it's going to be a hard game for Notre Dame fans to watch, right? A lot of illegal streams out there for people trying to check it out, and the crowd is going to be dead. The only good thing about it is that there'll probably be more Notre Dame fans than there will be Stanford fans.
Well, and you got to figure too, if this team has any pride, they probably feel they want some revenge on this game.
Yeah,
You know,
that's you.
they
You got to hit that home the whole week.
absolutely. I mean, they couldn't have played worse than they did in that Stanford game last year. I mean, that was just awful. Just played terrible. Had no business losing that game. None whatsoever. But you know what? Stanford just kept hanging around. You start slow and you just keep hanging around. You just let them hang around. And then next thing you know, things are, it's kind of what happened to Michigan today with Maryland. They just weren't putting them away. And then all of a sudden, Maryland's starting to gain some confidence and had Maryland stopped them on that fourth down play, which it was very close, who knows how that game would have ended. And they were in a dogfight there at the end. And so, I just got to figure that they're going to want, just kind of like USC last year, how they felt they played terrible and then they came out and just destroyed USC. I'm hoping for that kind of performance. And if that's what we get, then I feel pretty good about like the culture of things and where they're at with this program and I'm excited. I really am excited to see. I don't know how I'm going to watch the game. I'm going to do my best to watch it, obviously, but because I don't get it, I know you don't get it up there in Canada. But we just got to hope that we can watch the game. But I think that I will be disappointed if we don't see them come out and play well on Saturday next week, and for the reasons I stated.
Yeah, and you know what? Like I maybe glutton for punishment, Mike, but I actually rewatched that Stanford game during the offseason.
Yeah,
And really, like, I mean, I hate to I, I hate to throw dirt on a guy that's already gone, but like, I mean, Drew Pine was horrible in that game.
yeah,
He was really horrible in that game. Like missed like wide open
yeah,
opportunities, like a
yeah,
ton of them. Um, like they had no business being that bad on offense in the game. And then obviously they had the fumble late that really, kind of sealed it. They still could have won the game anyways, but really it was Pine who was just so bad in that game. And even I would say Hartman at his worst this year is way better than Pine was in that day. So that's the one thing I'll say. And then also too, their defense had guys last year. Like they had like 4 guys who were NFL guys, and they had other guys who were like, quality guys. And those guys are just gone. They are super young everywhere. They just don't have veterans on the team. Although all the veteran guys like just got out because they were like, this is like a bad situation. I actually think they're way better. They're a much better coach team than they were last year. They just have nobody.
yeah,
They have to be the least talented program in terms of upperclassmen. Because they have some young guys that are going to be pretty good, I think, at some point. But in terms of upperclassmen, they have to be the least talented Power 5 program out there. The fact that they even have 3 wins is like kind of amazing. And obviously, one of those wins was basically like one guy carrying them on their back. Uyeyama is that's just like the one guy that as long as like he doesn't go off and Notre Dame shuts him down, like I don't really see them being able to do much just because their line is so young. It's so young and they're bad. They're just bad. These guys aren't ready to play. It would be like Notre Dame's like third stringer guy. So it's like Notre Dame can play Craig, and I mean Craig was a third stringer.
yeah,
Craig was a third stringer and could play in that, and you'd be like Craig would automatically be like Stanford's best lineman. Like
yeah,
that's kind of where they're at. And it's crazy because of where they were before, but out of all the teams that I've watched this year and studied for Notre Dame's opponents, I mean, I don't even think it's close in terms of just like where they're positioned as a program. And then just the other thing is like they've had like injuries just like any other team would. So they don't have like Benjamin Urisic is a really good tight end, and he's
yeah,
going to be an NFL guy. He'll probably be the only guy that gets drafted for them next year. But he's been hurt and he hasn't
mhm,
played. So unless he comes back, I'm not sure like the extent of his injury if he'll be back. But he's missed several games now, and unless he comes back, like that means they have like literally no NFL guys of like who are going to be NFL guys next year. I mean, that's like a big difference from where they were last year. They had like 6 guys drafted last year and a couple other guys who were like, were in camps at the very least. And I just don't see it, Mike. They're not very good.
They're down 14-3 right now to Cal, and we'll see how they come back. I'd love to watch it, but of course now we're now we're in a situation where it's Pac-12 network and we can't watch that. Of course, so it's frustrating because I really haven't been able to watch Stanford much because they've been on the Pac-12 network
Yeah.
pretty much every game, so it's been difficult to really watch them and see what happens. All right, well, I don't know, Yama. When you look at the situation, somebody asked me earlier. This was a question I got, and I didn't know. The question was, how do how many of these guys, when it comes to bowl practice and bowl game, do you think would sit out? And people ask me that, and it would surprise me if only maybe Alt was. It wouldn't surprise me if only Alt sat out.
Yeah.
I would guess, even Hartman would play. I think he wants to show that he can be good in against a good team, and so if you light it up against Wake and you light it up against Stanford, that really doesn't mean much. If you play a quality team and you play well again, I think that can help his stock, and I think for pretty much all those guys as well. So we'll just have to see what happens and go from there.
The only guy that I think would maybe be likely would be Audric Estime. Just because he's obviously going to the NFL, and he's right now he's considered to be like one of the top 5 backs in the draft.
Sure.
And I mean, the way he runs isn't doesn't set him up for injury that well, right? Because obviously he runs it a certain way, and I don't think that he might still play. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't play. But all the other guys that are like Cam Hart, I just don't see him he's not at the level of where like Hamilton and Kyron Williams, and I know Kyron went later, right? But still, Kyron had like zero anything to prove, and
he had a lot of good film. He had a lot of
great film out there.
Yeah.
And Cam Hart, I kind of think still needs as much great film as possible. And then I think like if you compare to like Foskey and Mayer last year, those guys were top prospects. Foskey obviously didn't. I mean, he went in the second round, but like he could have been. He was still thinking about like possibly being like a first round pick at that time. Like Hart still has work to do. I mean, it's going to be, something that matters. Like, so if they're playing against a good team, that would help. I mean, not that I think Notre Dame will probably be fine, even if he didn't play, because of their depth there. I do think there might be a chance that there's some guys who go in the portal and leave. So, like, just for example, I don't know that this can happen, but say Nana Osafo-Mensah, if he's looking to go somewhere else and play an extra year somewhere,
he may
decide to say like, I'm going in the portal and then I'm going to go out, and
that could happen for
that could happen.
Certainly, sure.
I think I don't think there's too many of those guys, and most of those guys that it would be like, I don't see it like, so like Diggs last year, who obviously transferred later on after the spring, like he wasn't obviously finished the season and played in the bowl game. Like, I don't see too many of those guys jumping in. So, and even if they do, there'd be guys who aren't playing key roles.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting too, because now with this Jordan Travis thing, maybe people think twice too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you're like, well, I don't want that to happen to me. And obviously this is not it sucks that it's against a team that, isn't, you're not playing Georgia when it happens. You know what I mean? So it's a tough situation. It really is. And I don't blame people for protecting themselves if they have the opportunity to be, a high draft pick and things like that. I certainly don't. I don't personally like it, as I've pointed out many times, but it is what it is. And, people are just going to do what's best for them moving forward in college football, because that's just kind of the way it's progressing and the way it is. So, Well, Yama, I mean, anything else you want to add here for the show? I mean, it's just there isn't a whole lot to talk about. I think that there's a lot of good that we saw today, and we pointed it out. Was I talked about the only real negative I saw, which was just the way they started the game and how that continues to concern me. I hope they play better moving forward, but I think offensively, it was good to see some life. It was great to see Sam Hartman. I mean, as much as Hartman can frustrate you, I mean, this guy is everything you want as a representative of Notre Dame. And so it was great to see him end his Notre Dame career at in Notre Dame Stadium the way he did. And that's certainly a great story, and I'm very happy for him because by all accounts everybody loves the guy. He's done everything he can to help his team. I do like the guy as a person, and so I was excited about that. And again, I think the offense, the encouraging thing is I think Jared Parker did a really good job in this game. I think it was his best called game maybe of the entire year. He may have had more explosiveness and things at times, but a lot of people didn't have a lot of film on what Jared Parker was going to do. These guys now have a lot of film, and he was able to still design some things to get some plays open, and they executed well. So I think offensively you got to be pretty happy with it. Of course, defensively, I mean, anytime you give up 7 points, and I mean, what'd they have? Maybe 250 yards, if that.
They had 232.
Yeah, I didn't think it would be very much. So, but there's a lot to be excited about in that regard as well. Anything you want to add, Yama?
Yeah, just that I think it's been great to see. Obviously, that the end of the Weiss era was the worst time ever for senior days for Notre Dame. I
Yeah.
think those are arguably the darkest days, really. Like, and I know obviously Ty Willingham was the darkest or whatever in recent memory, right? And
Very dark.
there's yeah, it was dark. It was
Oh,
dark. But the one thing with Weiss is just how those games ended against the programs that they played. Like
yeah.
Syracuse stunk, and then they laid an egg. UConn was not good,
Horrible. Oh my gosh.
and they lost that game. Like those were horrible, horrible losses, and you hate to see seniors, no matter how the season went, you hate to see the seniors in their last game at home go out that way. You just don't
Sure.
ever want to see that. And this is from my buddy Chris Wilson, who he tweeted this earlier, but this was the last 5 Notre Dame senior days. They're all against ACC teams. So 42-13 over FSU, 40-7 over BC, 45-21 over Syracuse, 55-0 over Georgia Tech, 44-0 over BC, and then 45-7 over Wake Forest. Love to see that for these guys to go out, and then you get guys to young guys get in there at the end of the game, and all these guys get to kind of experience a great day, and you get to see your families there, and you get to celebrate after.
Yeah.
And love to see that. Love to see that them have that kind of day today.
Yeah, and I'm excited about the young talent at skill that's starting to emerge. I obviously Greathouse going to be a really good player. Flores is going to be a great player. We already knew that. We're seeing Faison really start to develop and become the kind of guy that we're hoping for. Merriweather took a big step today. Eli Raridan, 3 catches today with a touchdown. So, I mean, the young guys and skilled talent is starting to really emerge. And so give them an off season, get them stronger, right? Get them a little more into the offense, a little bit more confidence. And we could see a pretty good offense next year, especially if Blake Fisher comes back, and we'll see what happens. But a lot to like today, I thought.
Definitely.
All right, folks. Well, that's going to be it for the show. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Jamie and I will be ready to talk about it after we get to rewatch it on Power Hour. So check that out. And we did get one question here I wanted to hit. Which 2024 commit do you expect to see early playing time next year? That's a good question. I think there's a lot of guys that could,
Yeah.
Go,
Um,
go ahead.
I would say Keedron Young.
Yeah.
He would
A
be the
different back than everybody else.
just because he is so. I mean, he's a man.
Yeah.
Like the way he's built already.
Yeah.
And I mean, to me, he's a guy that my grade is going to go way up when I update all that kind of stuff before signing day. And he obviously looks fantastic his senior year. He's physically going to be ready to play as long as but even if you look at a guy like Jeremiah Love, they found a role for him.
Yeah.
I think Keedron Young is like, they're going to find a role for him. Like certainly Cam Williams, there's a lot of other talented guys that I think they will try to find a role for too. But to me, he is an absolute slam dunk. He is going to play next year.
Just because, and I don't think I wouldn't say he's better than Aeneas Williams. They're just different players.
They're just different players, yeah.
And he's replacing a guy that he's most similar to, which is Audric Estime. And so
Yeah.
I think that those guys are really, both of them are extremely talented. And we'll see. Defensively, I'm not sure anybody that I would think that would play.
I think
so. Bryce Young's going to be a really good player, but I'm not sure it's going to happen next year, So,
I mean, he would be the guy who has the best shot just because he's the guy who physically, I think, is going to wow people, right?
Yeah.
So he has a chance to come in and then
he already looks like
KVA mentioned. Michael mentioned KVA. KVA is easily the most advanced guy that they're bringing in on the defensive side of the ball. So it's just really hard for a freshman linebacker to play right away.
Yeah.
I think like Jalen Smith probably wouldn't have played right away if it wasn't for the injury, right? Like that happened with Danny Spawn, right? And like Manti, I think part of it was they didn't have really good guys in front of him. And it's not that he wasn't, didn't end up doing well as this year went on, but it's just going to be.
Struggled. He struggled his freshman year.
He struggled, right?
Yeah,
like he flashed, and that's it. KVA, I think, has the best shot out of anyone. He's just a really advanced guy in a lot of ways, but I mean that all depends too, because if some of these older linebackers come back, and obviously there's a lot of other young talent there too, it's going to be a good competition.
All right. That's going to be it, folks. Hope you enjoyed that, and we'll be talking to you on Power Hour as well. Sorry, once again, we didn't have Greg here to run the show. Jamie and I are, I'll just say I'm a technical idiot when it comes to these types of things. Jamie just has not tried to use, neither of us have tried to use it. It's the problem. We don't even have the program to run, which we probably should now learn this in case Greg isn't around for this particular situation. So, all right, guys, appreciate it, and thanks for showing up, and we'll be talking to you on Power Hour and on Irish Sports Daily throughout the week. Thanks for watching. I don't know. Hopefully, Chris. Okay. All right, Chris. Are we good?